Marcus Ellison woke before sunrise, the way he did most days. His alarm buzzed at 5:15 a.m., slicing through the dim quiet of his Baltimore row house. He rolled out of bed slowly, muscles still heavy from last night's workout. The floorboards creaked under his feet. Old wood with more character than strength, but it was home, and he loved it. Downstairs, the smell of coffee was already blooming from the machine he'd programmed the night before. He could hear his mother humming in the kitchen. She wasn't staying with him permanently, but she visited often ever since retiring from teaching. She claimed she just wanted to see her baby doing right. But Marcus suspected she came to keep him fed. "Morning, Ma," he said as he walked in, still rubbing his eyes. "Morning, baby," she said, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs in front of him. "You know I'm 35 years old, right? I can make my own breakfast." "You can, but you won't," she said, waving him off. "Eat. You got court today, don't you?" "Magistrate hearing," he said with a small sigh. "Traffic matter. Should be quick." She murmured, her mouth tightening slightly. "City court?" "County," he corrected. Her frown deepened. "Well, you keep your cool. Some folks out there." She shook her head but didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Growing up black in America meant learning to read the room, the tone, the silence. Marcus knew exactly what she meant. Still, he kissed her cheek and assured her he'd be fine. He grabbed his suit jacket from the back of a kitchen chair, checked that his case files were in his briefcase, and headed out the door. The morning sun had just begun glinting off the parked cars lining the street. It smelled like damp concrete and brewing possibility. He didn't know the day ahead would test everything: his patience, his identity, and his principles. Marcus drove his late-model black sedan, neat and polished, but not flashy. He was cautious by habit, if not necessity. Even in work attire, a navy suit that fit perfectly across his shoulders. He knew how he'd be perceived behind the wheel. 5 miles from the courthouse, flashing red and blue lights cut through his rear window. His stomach tightened. Not fear, just weariness. He checked his speed, well within the limit. He signaled, pulled to the shoulder, rolled his window down, and set his hands firmly on the wheel. The officer approached, hand resting on his hip. "Morning, sir," Marcus offered calmly. "License and registration," the officer said. His tone wasn't rude, but it was sharp enough to scrape. Marcus followed every motion deliberately and narratively, something drilled into him by family tradition and generational survival. "Reaching into my inside pocket for my wallet," he said, now opening the glove compartment. The officer didn't respond. After reviewing the documents, the officer stepped back. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" "I'm not sure, officer." "You changed lanes without signaling." Marcus blinked. He knew he hadn't, but arguing roadside wasn't wise. "I see. You headed somewhere in a hurry?" "Just going to courthouse." "Oh." The officer's eyebrow lifted. "For what?" Marcus gave a small, neutral smile. "Work." That was all he said. The officer wrote the citation anyway, handing it to him with a tone suggesting he'd already sized Marcus up and filed him under a category he'd never escape. Marcus took the paper politely. "Have a good day, officer." The officer nodded curtly and walked away. As Marcus pulled onto the road again, he exhaled, shaking his head. Annoying but manageable. He'd explained the stop in court. Honestly, he planned to just pay the fine. But something in him felt unsettled. Maybe it was a look on the officer's face. Or maybe he was tired of letting things slide. Either way, he kept driving. The county courthouse was a squat, aging building with beige stone that hadn't looked inspiring in decades. Lawyers milled about on the steps, talking in clusters. People filed inside, parents juggling documents and toddlers, men in work boots, women in scrubs coming off night shifts. Courtrooms were one of the few places where America's entire social spectrum collided. Inside, the air smelled like paper, coffee, and the faint anxiety of civic obligation. Marcus greeted a few clerks he recognized. He'd handled federal matters here before, though rarely, and took a seat in the gallery. Judge William Hartwell presided over the morning docket. A man in his early 60s, Hartwell had a reputation. Strict, no nonsense. Old school. For some people, that meant fairness. For others, it meant something far more conditional. Marcus watched as Hartwell handled the cases before him, each rapid, mechanical. Guilty. Fine, $100. Next. Community service. Next. When Marcus's name was called, Marcus Ellison, the judge didn't even look up at first. Just flipped the page. You the defendant? Hartwell asked without inflection. I am, Marcus said, stepping forward. Hartwell finally glanced up, and something tightened in his expression. It wasn't overt, just a flicker. A split second of something Marcus had seen many times in life. Surprise, then quick judgment. Lane change violation, Hartwell said. Plead guilty or not guilty? Not guilty, Your Honor. Judge Hartwell sat back. Really? He said like a challenge. Yes, Your Honor. You were stopped by Officer Jameson. He's a reputable officer. With respect, Your Honor, I believe the stop was unnecessary. I did signal. Hartwell's lips curved slightly, disbelief or irritation. So the officer is lying? Marcus chose his words carefully. I'm saying I signaled. Hartwell's voice sharpened. You people, he stopped himself, but the damage was done. Some drivers, he corrected poorly, refused to take responsibility. The courtroom shifted. Small movements. A cough. A silence thick enough to hold shape. Marcus felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his posture straight. I am taking responsibility, Your Honor, for my actions, not someone else's assumptions. Hartwell stared at him for 2 long seconds before picking up his pen. Fine, $300. Mandatory driving course. Next case. Marcus blinked. Your Honor, I said next case. Hartwell barked, already looking at papers. Gasps fluttered across the room. It was unusually harsh for such a minor violation. Marcus opened his mouth again, anger pressing against his ribs. But experience told him escalating now would help no one. Not here. Not with Hartwell. Instead, he nodded slowly. Very well. He turned, walked out, and felt every eye on him. Outside the courtroom, a young public defender named Ariana Shaw hurried after him. Marcus, she hissed. What the hell was that? He exhaled. Judge had a morning. No, she said firmly. That was... She lowered her voice. I've seen him give warning for worse. He went after you like you crashed into his car. Marcus shrugged. It happens. It shouldn't, she protested. But it does, he said, softening. I'm okay. She studied him. You're gonna appeal? He hesitated. He wasn't one to make a scene. His job as a federal prosecutor required diplomacy, balance, integrity, even under pressure. But Hartwell's words, you people, were still echoing in him. Yeah, Marcus said. I think I will. Good, Ariana said. Let me know if you need anything. He nodded and walked toward the exit. His phone buzzed. Texts from colleagues. He ignored them. He needed air. Outside, he drew a deep breath of cold winter air. Despite everything, he felt clear. Something in him had shifted. Not out of pride, but principle. Sometimes pushing back wasn't for yourself, but for others who couldn't. When he returned to the courthouse later that afternoon for a filing, he stepped into the clerk's office. A few staffers recognized him immediately. Hey, Marcus, one of them said. Didn't expect to see you twice in one day. Minor matter. Should be quick, he said. The staffer laughed. Judge Hartwell sure gave you grief this morning. Guess he didn't know who you were. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Shouldn't matter. It shouldn't, the clerk agreed. But around here, things shift. She typed for a moment, then paused. Oh, actually, Judge Hartwell wants to see you in chambers. Marcus stiffened. Me? He asked for the gentleman from the traffic docket this morning. Marcus considered refusing, but curiosity tugged. All right, he said. Judge Hartwell's chambers
Your
were
Honor,
lined with dark mahogany
the
shelves,
evidence clearly
filled with law
demonstrates
books that looked older than half the staff. A portrait of his father, also a judge, hung behind the desk. Hartwell stood when Marcus entered, which was unusual. His expression was rigid, almost uncomfortable. Mr. Ellison, he said stiffly. "Have a seat." Marcus didn't sit. "How can I help you, Your Honor?" Hartwell cleared his throat. "It's come to my attention that you are employed by the federal government." "Yes," Marcus said evenly. "In what capacity?" Marcus paused, not out of hesitation, but to let Hartwell feel the weight of his own question. "I'm a federal prosecutor, assistant U.S. attorney." Hartwell's face drained a color. He blinked twice, visibly recalibrating. "I see." He swallowed. "Had I known—" "With respect, Your Honor," Marcus said, "who I am shouldn't change your decision." Hartwell's jaw tightened. "I may have acted hastily." "You may have," Marcus said calmly. The judge shifted, uncomfortable. "I'm willing to reconsider fine." "That's not what this is about." Hartwell looked startled. "What do you want, then?" Marcus finally sat. He leaned forward slightly. "I want what every citizen who stands in this room deserves. Fairness, respect, impartiality. Not assumptions. Not remarks like the one you made." Hartwell's eyes darted to the door, as if afraid someone might overhear. "I misspoke." "You revealed a mindset," Marcus corrected gently but firmly. Hartwell's face tightened again, but differently now, like a man forced to confront a mirror he'd avoided for years. "I have served this bench for 3 decades, he said defensively. "And in that time, how many people have walked out feeling the way I did today?" Marcus asked quietly. "People without degrees, without legal training, without the confidence to speak up?" Hartwell looked down at his desk, at the portrait of his father, at the papers, anywhere but at Marcus. "I'm not accusing you of being a bad judge," Marcus continued. "I'm asking you to be a better one." Hartwell let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for years. "I can vacate the fine," he said quietly, "and the course requirement." Marcus shook his head. "Do what's right because it's right, not because of my title." Hartwell looked up at him then, really looked. His face was tired, his pride dented, his certainty shaken. But something else flickered too. Reflection, maybe, or humility. "Thank you for coming," Hartwell said quietly. Marcus nodded once, stood, and left the chambers without another word. That evening, his mother ladled chicken stew into bowls while Marcus told her everything. Not every detail, just the important ones. She listened silently, her hands slowing as she stirred. When he finished, she set the spoon down. "Proud of you, baby." He blinked. "For what?" "I didn't do anything dramatic." "You spoke truth." She touched his arm. "And you held your head high. That's how your father lived. That's how my father lived. We teach strength the quiet way." Marcus felt his chest loosen. "I just wanted him to see me. Really see me." "He did," she said. "And maybe next time he'll see someone else too." They sat down to eat, steam rising between them. The world outside was still complicated, imperfect, and full of people like Hartwell, people learning slowly, painfully. But change didn't need applause. It needed persistence. Marcus received a letter from the courthouse. He opened it expecting something bureaucratic. Instead, it was handwritten. "Mr. Ellison, upon review, I have vacated your fine. More importantly, I am committed to reevaluating how I conduct my courtroom. Thank you for the clarity you offered. It was needed, though not comfortable. Judge William Hartwell." Marcus read it twice. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't transformation. But it was a step. And in America, steps mattered. The next morning, Marcus walked into his office at the U.S. Attorney's building. His co-workers called out greetings. Files waited on his desk. Life moved forward, contentious and beautiful and tiring and worthwhile. He hung his coat, sipped his coffee, and began his day with quiet resolve. He didn't need vindication. He needed change. And change, he believed, begins in rooms exactly like the one he'd stood in, rooms where truth meets authority, where courage meets tradition, where an ordinary citizen can look a judge in the eye and remind him of the oath he swore. Marcus smiled to himself. Some days, justice wasn't a verdict. It was a conversation.